Hello everyone. Been working on this LCD kit here, and it doesn't have Wi-Fi on it. So I've always wanted to do a project and connect to the internet and get some information. So here I have like weather information, the temperature, and what kind of day it is, like a clear sky, and the time and day of the week. So been searching on the internet, and I came upon this ESP 8266 module. This particular one board is called the ESP-01. Just uses serial data, uses AT commands to control it, to connect to the internet, use SSID and a password and such things. And later on, I stumbled upon this ESP32. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in. So this is the main module here, and then it's just soldered onto this bigger board, which is just a DIP package. And it has a USB to serial adapter on here, so you can connect to your computer and program this. And what's nice about this, this has a microcontroller built in, and it's Arduino compatible, so you can use our Arduino IDE to program this. So the firmware that's on here is the factory one that you just control again with AT commands. But if you wanted to customize it, you can use the Arduino and make your custom firmware. So that's that module, and I already have one connected to the here. So originally I had this ESP 8266, and I had to hard code the SSID and the password. So I wanted it to use the screen to enter the password and SSID. So I had to come up with a screen to input some text and the password. So I was wondering, well, how can I do that? So let me just. So in the TouchGFX, you should go ahead and start this, because we need to get we need to create a project anyway, and use part of the files that it creates. So just go ahead and select the 746 here, and then for the template, I came upon this keyboard here example, and just go ahead and select it. Give it a name, and then just remember what location it is. I've already created this, so for you just click the button and create it, but I already have it, so this is it. What's crazy about this is all you get. It's just a background. There's no interactions at all. So you can run the simulator here. I'll give it a few seconds here. And this is what you'll see on your LCD, and it's great that you can input text. I'm gonna change to different characters, special characters here. But what do you do from here? There's no enter key. How do you save this information, this text that you typed in? If you were like me, I was like, what do you do? So let me switch back. So here, you're probably wondering how I got the text in here. So, and here, here's the keyboard. Well, I had to come up with my own buttons, like the cancel button. So basically, the cancel button, all it does is goes back to the settings screen, which is this. And then if you type in whatever text, oops. Let's go to numbers here. And you hit OK, it'll save it. I'm not going to do it on this one, but we go back. That text I typed in would show up right here, and the same thing for password. But the password I have masked out, and you're probably wondering how I did that. So yeah, so in this tutorial, I'll show you how I created this. Not a real edit text box, but it simulates it. So all right, so I need to switch screens, and I need to move the camera out of the way, and then get my keyboard set up. So give me a second here. Alright, so if you've already created this project, go ahead and close that. So here's the project that I already created from the TouchGFX. So I'll move that out. Wait a second, and I'm starting off with my previous project. If you've been watching my video from the very beginning, where trying to set up the latest TouchGFX 4.13.0 and Cube IDE 1.2.1, you couldn't get it to work. You get a blank screen. So I had made a tutorial, so I'll leave a description below so you can get a project up and running if you already can't get one going. So this is the project. So first thing to do is give me a second here. I'm trying to remember. Alright, so let's go ahead and open the TouchGFX folder here. I'm going to start up TouchGFX. Alright, so again I said before that this is from the previous project to get you up and started. So we don't need this. What we're gonna do, we're gonna leave this as like the weather screen where it had the temperature and the time and the day. But I'm not gonna show you this how to lay this out yet, because we need to actually get the ESP32 up and running first and get the Wi-Fi credentials in there before we can even get information from the internet. So we'll leave this for another video. This might be 3 parts to this whole project, because it's going to be a lot of code. So let me see. So I need to place a button. We'll do this button with label, and okay, so I'll just get a round button. Let's press, and then I'll call this settings. This down in the corner, and then we need to change the font size. Create a new one here, edit that and then just reduce the text. So we're going to create a second screen, which will be the settings screen. So call that settings. Okay, and let's go back to screen 1, and then we need to create an action, an interaction. The trigger button is clicked, which is this button, and let me go ahead and label that. Button was labeled settings. So here it is, it's labeled now, and then change the screen to the screen setting, and let's just call this change to screen settings. So that's that. Go to screen settings here, and then I'm gonna go lay out the settings page. Try to copy what I did on the actual LCD. So okay, we'll do a black background. Then I'm going to add a little top bar here. Okay. And then I'm just going to put a text there, just call it Wi-Fi. I'll change the type back to 20 here. Centered. Alright, so make this easy, I'll just go back to screen 1 and I'm going to copy this button. Control C, go back to screen settings, Control V, and then I'll just change the name to we can call it OK. I had OK. You can call it save. It's up to you. So, but I'll just stay with OK. And change the text here. OK. Go ahead and copy that. Control C. Copy that. Control V. All right. So that's there. So move that over. And I'm going to call this cancel. Alright, and I need to create the edit text box. So this one is going to be a box with border. Expand that out. Alright, so I'm going to have this as kind of a gray background. And then the border color I'll make white. And I'll reduce the line border size down to 2. So that's what it looks like. Then I'm going to add a text with a wildcard. Place that in there. Now before I go on, the keyboard that TouchGFX provides, you can only put in a maximum of 17 characters. So I want to be sure that I can get 17 characters in here, and I've already done this, so I already know. But if you're doing something similar and you have a different layout, you want to be sure that you can get 17 characters in there. So disable this, and we can expand that out. And so easiest way I would do is just kind of type in up to 17 characters. So I'm not sure 17 characters, so it fits in here. So we know that the width of this box is good to allow this text to fit in here. So we don't need this anymore, but we need to add a wildcard, and we need to use a buffer, and TouchGFX, I'll explain this. You have to put in one more index, so for the null character. So when you have a string, you need to have a null character. So being that we can only get 17 from the keyboard, we need to add one more, so that'll be 18. So we need to increase this up to 18. Okay, let's give this text area a name, so we'll call this SSID. Alright, and then let me go ahead and move this up a little bit, and text as well. Alright, so we'll also copy this box with border, so Control C, Control V, and then we're going to move this down. So this is the SSID, and this will be the password. Don't have to give the box a name because we're not going to do anything special with them, but obviously we need to give these text area with the wildcard a name. So this is the SSID, so I'm just going to go ahead and just do Control C and then Control V, and then grab that and move it down here. Alright, and then I need to rename this, and I'll do password, PW for short. Okay, and that the password will you can type up to 17 characters. I don't know if anybody has passwords that are longer. On my router, by default, it was only 16 characters. So if you're doing more, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, because the keyboard that TouchGFX provides only does 17 characters. So hopefully your password is 17 characters or less. Alright, so go ahead and give this a name here, and so this will be SSID. And another text, and this one will be password. Alright, so now you're wondering, how did I get it so when I touched this that it went to the keyboard screen? Well, I actually used a flex button. So just overlay this over on top of everything. So flex button is over on top of all these areas. So I'll expand this out to cover that box with the border. Let's give this a name. So this is SSID, and all I do is change the alpha to 0. So there is a button there, but you just don't see it. Okay, so that's selected. So what I'm going to do is just do a Control C, then Control V. So just create a new one, and I'll just grab that and put that over the password, and then just rename this to PW for password. Alright. Now that's all done. Alright, so let me read my notes here. Alright, let's create another screen, and this one we'll call keyboard. And I'm just gonna give this a gray, kind of a gray, dark gray background. That's that. And let's go back to screen settings, and I'm going to copy these buttons because they're going to be pretty much doing the exact same thing on the keyboard screen, or screen keyboard screen. Okay, Control C, Control V. Alright. So on this one, it's pretty easy. You're actually not going to do anything else here besides doing whatever interactions with these buttons. So let's go to interactions here. I'm going to add an interaction. We're going to trigger off the cancel. So trigger button is clicked. Choose a click source, which will be a button with label cancel. And when we're canceling, we're not going to do anything but just go back one screen. So we're just going to change screen, and we're going to go back to the settings screen. Let's see, I'll just call this button cancel. Let's get this capital B. Alright, so that's the button cancel. All it does is changes the screen, but nothing else. Now for the OK button, you're just going to have to pretend there is a keyboard here. The keyboard will get laid out in code, so just pretend it's right there. So you're type in whatever text, and then hit OK, or you can label this as save or whatever you want it to be. So window button is clicked, and we're gonna choose which one. So that's OK, and we're gonna do call a virtual function. And this one, TouchGFX has a function that gets the buffer, which is the buffer is for the keyboard text information that was typed in. So I'll just go ahead and call the same function. So get buffer, and I'll just say this one is the button OK. And then we gotta trigger another interaction here. So make sure you get this clicked. Then we're gonna add another interaction interaction. Close this down a second, and this is triggers on another interaction that is done. There's a button OK, and then this one we're changing screen. We're just basically going back to the settings screen. So screen settings, and let's call this change to screen settings. Alright, so again, cancel just takes you back one screen, doesn't do anything else. Hit OK, or if you called it save or whatever it might be. You're going to call a virtual function, which is going to be get buffer. So we're going to be doing some coding in the back, and when that's done, then it's going to go ahead and this one will act upon this button OK, and then change back to the settings screen. So this screen keyboard is done. So the screen settings has a lot of work to be done. So let's go with cancel. Cancel is basically the same thing. So we don't want to save any of this information if it got changed. So we'll call interaction, button is clicked, button label is canceled, and we're going to change screen, and this will be screen 1, which is the home page or the weather page. Nothing else has to be done, so we'll just call this button cancel. Alright, well, that's all it's doing. Then OK. We'll put that off for a second. I'm going to go when we click the SSID button that's hidden here. We want to before I go there, let's go to properties here, and we're going to add an action here. I'm going to call this, let's see, what am I going to call this? Give me a second here. Look at my projects. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm going to call this keyboard selected value. So keyboard selected. Actually, I'll just call it var for variable, because it's going to hold a couple of numbers in it. So type will just be sign 8, int 8. Alright. Now we can go back to interaction. So here, when I click this hidden button, the SSID one, so this is button is clicked, flex button, SSID, and this action is we're going to call the screen setting keyboard selected var, which I just created. And I'm gonna call I'm gonna have this as index 0, and then password will be index 1. So put 0 here, and then make sure we have trigger another interaction. this one, let's see, call this a button SSID. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing for this button that's for password that's not visible. So button is clicked, flex button password, and again we'll call this screen setting keyboard select bar, and this one's going to be 1. The reason being that I'm doing that is because when I go to the keyboard screen and then do a save, I need to know what array that I'm going to save these characters in the back, in the how I explain this, in the background, write some code, so I had to create a variable array to hold these values, and so I need to know what index I need to save it into. So that's why I have index 0 and then index 1. Alright, and make sure we have this trigger another interaction. So this one is going to be button password. Okay. Alright, let me see. Alright, so we need to add another interaction, and this one is when we select click these buttons, it's saving the value 0 or 1, so it's going to trigger this keyboard selected bar is called. So we need to act upon this, because even though I saved these values into that into this variable, it still needs to be saved in our view, because what's happening here on this file is being saved. It's saved into that's kind of hard to explain, but let me go here. So the stuff that's in the generated, like this GUI generated stuff, you can't modify, or well, you could, but they TouchGFX, let's see, like anything that has base, it says this file is generated by TouchGFX designer, do not modify. So these values are placed in those base files, so you can't modify it there. So let's go back here. Here, when this is called, we want to call a virtual function, and this one is let's see, I'm gonna call this keyboard selected. Alright, so again, so when the either one of these buttons are selected, we save it into that variable of the var, but then we still need to act upon callback, or was it callback, or when it's called. Um, so we need to call a new virtual function. I'm calling it keyboard selected, and then from there we still need to trigger another interaction. So okay, close that down, and then on another interaction, and this one is the keyboard selected, which is this one, and then we're just going to call change screens. Change screens, and this is then we can call now the screen keyboard, and I'll call that change to screen keyboard. Spelled that wrong. Alright. So either of these buttons I get clicked, we save into a variable. This one then this gets called. We need to call a function, and this is going to be in our view. So in our view, we can actually work with this 0 or 1. And then from there, it's going to change to the keyboard screen. Now, when we're in our keyboard screens, just pretend the keyboard's here, and then we come back, we want to update this screen with the new information, or if it's in the buffer and we cancel, if the buffer still has characters in it, we still want to update this the wildcards here. So I'm going to add an interaction. So when the screen is entered, call a virtual function, and let's see, call this update screen. Update screen. Alright. I believe that's it. I'm looking at my notes. Alright. This is what we need to do. We need to go to text because we have wildcards. Anytime we have wildcards, we have to give it some text ranges. So go to text, and then under this tab typographies, we need to add a new one. But what we need to do is we need to go to that project that we created. Give me a second here. So this is the project that TouchGFX that we generated. This is just a template that we're grabbing some information from, so we're not actually going to use this. But so let's go into TouchGFX, and then we need to go to Assets. Go under Text, and we need to open up this Excel file. Hopefully you guys have Excel. If not, you probably have to use Google. I forget what their program is called, but Google will be able to open that. Alright, so here's the Excel file. We're gonna go to this first tab. Alright, so I need to get this information into TouchGFX. So we got this display, keyboard, and mode, the different fonts. This font could be whatever you want. I'm gonna use Arial because that's the common type of font that most computers should have. We got the size 28, 20, 24. This is already default when we go into TouchGFX, and then we have fallback characters, which are question marks. And then we have these wildcard characters, which is all these different characters. And then the wildcard ranges, which is just A through Z, lowercase, uppercase, and then 0 through 9. So I'm going to move this out of the way, but I'll be copying and pasting. So we'll add a new one. So the first one was called display. And again, I'm just going to use Arial because that's a common font. And the size was 28. Then it's defaulted at 4. Open this wildcard option up. Fallback character was a question mark. The wildcard characters, let me go ahead and copy that. So Control C, Control V. And then the wildcard ranges, which was at A through Z. So copy and paste. Alright, so that's it for that one. We can go ahead and save that. Alright, now we add the next one, which was keyboard. So, oops. So I'll go back and show you. So we did the display, all that, and then we need to do the keyboard. And then the last one is mode. So this one's called keyboard. And it'll be Arial. This was 20. Open that up. Fallback character with a question mark. Wildcard characters. And then the ranges. And save. And then the last one was mode. So mode here. Arial. And this didn't have any wildcard option. There was no question mark, no characters or ranges. So we can go ahead and save that. Alright, so now we need to go to resources tab here. And we're going to add a new resource. Alright, let me bring this cell back. And under this tab here, translation, we need to copy this information. So it'll be EditText, it's display, it's left, and the text here is placeholder. So here we'll put entered text. This was display. Oops. Here's the display, and this was alignment left, and this was placeholder. Now I don't know if all this information is needed. If maybe some of it's needed, but I had got some compile errors, so I just copy everything just to be safe. So we'll add the next one, which was none mode. And this one was mode. So, oops. There's mode. This was alignment center, and this was ABC. The next one, which was alpha, alpha mode, mode, centered, that wasn't centered, so these were centered, the last two are centered, and then This one is 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that's that. Alright. I'm looking at my notes, so give me a second here. All right. So now, when we go back to our template project, let's go back to here to assets, images. We need to copy these images. I don't recall ever seeing these 3 images here ever showing up, but I just copy all of it. So Control C, and let's go to our workspace here, and this is going to be this project, TouchGFX, assets, images, and just Control V to paste all that images. So this, my project is this right here, but we just haven't generated anything. So here's all the images. Here's the keyboard and all that. All right. So I believe that's it. We can go ahead and generate the code. Alright, so let's go ahead and close that. And let's go back to our IDE here. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Alright, so there's our keyboard and settings screen. Alright, close this down and then go open this up. Alright. So let's go back to that template project and go back to this is the regular project we're working on now. So we need to go back to the TouchGFX one. So what was that one called? That was keyboard version 3. So okay, open the TouchGFX. The GUI, let's go include first, GUI, and then common, and we're going to copy 3 files here, the ones that says keyboard in them. So that's keyboard, custom keyboard key mapping, and then keyboard layout. So Control C, let's go to our IDE here. And then we're going to place in the same folder, so it's under the GUI, include GUI, and then the comments. So select that folder and just Control V. So that's done, and then I need to go back to the source. Common. And we're just going to copy this one file that says keyboard, custom keyboard. Control C, go back to our IDE here, and then make sure that's selected, and then Control V. So that's that. So now we need to start do some coding in the background. So let's go to the source screen keyboard. And it's going to be the screen keyboard view. Open that up. Let's actually go to the header file for that first. So screen, where am I at? Screen keyboard. Okay, so here's screen keyboard. Here's the header file for that. I need to add I need to create a variable here. So on the protected here, we're adding custom keyboard and creating a variable keyboard here. Need to include a include file. So we're including custom keyboard header file here, and then now we can go back to here to the C++ file, and then under the screen keyboard view, we're going to create the keyboard. So when we come to the screen keyboard view, this keyboard is going to pop up on that screen that was, just a gray background with a cancel and a OK button. So this creates the keyboard, so that you'll see it pop up. I'm just going to save all this real quick, and then let's go to the source file for custom keyboard under common. So let's open that up. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and so here we're creating a function to get the buffer. So this keyboard is the keyboard that gets generated and pops up on that gray background, and it has a function, a member get buffer, so that returns the characters that's displayed on that keyboard, and we're just returning it back, and it is a Unicode characters. I need to then add this as a prototype, so let's go ahead and right click this and open that, and so that's our prototype. Go ahead and save that. So we can save that. That's all that needs to be done to those files. Now here, all right, so this keyboard hit buffer is that function that we created under this keyboard custom keyboard. So we're returning that Unicode value, which is now going to be stored here in this variable, and then I'm going to create our array that I was talking about that holds our SSID and password. So let me open them up. And these will be external variables because the variables will be in the screen settings. Well, I'll get to that in a second. So control that. All right, so these are the keyboard buffer. So again, I have two, one for the SSID and one for the password, and there were 17 characters plus one more for the null character, so that's why there's 18 here. And then that keyboard selection, this lets me know which keyboard was selected when we TouchGFX. You selected either that hidden button that was either SSID or the password. This keyboard selection would be either 0 or 1. So when we do a screen copy here into this buffer, I know that it's going to be either the SSID or the password that I need to save it to. So that's the reason why I had to create that variable in TouchGFX. But this is actually I'll explain it. In TouchGFX, we had to call a virtual function. So I'll get to that in a second here. Once this is all done, you can go ahead and look at it, and then you can understand what's actually happening. So let's go to screen settings view here. And a couple header files here. I'm gonna comment this out for a second. There's not. This will be for part 2 or part 3 of the video. So you don't need that right now. On this video, we're just going to update the settings screen with the SSID and password. So we're not going to be sending that information to the ESP32 yet, and that will be in another video. So this is the actual variables that were created, but we had did extern here. So this is where they're created. All right. So if you remember, we created that function. Go here. So we'll go to generated, GUI generated, include, GUI generate again, and then screen settings. Open up the header file here, the base one, and here are some of the functions that the virtual functions. We need to override these, and so again, remember, we can't do anything in the base. We can, do not modify these files. So anything in the GUI generated here, we can't do anything, but we can do it in the GUI, and we can override these. So let's go ahead and copy the first one here. Where was that settings? So screen view, screen settings view here, and we'll paste that, and then this is copy that and paste it here, and then brackets in. Alright, so that was the first one we did an override, so we need to override this one. Update screen. Copy that, and then paste that one in there, and then again we need to copy that, paste it in front of here. Alright. And then we need to add these as prototypes. So that's it. Yeah, so we'll don't need anything on this. And close that. So let's copy this. And go to the header file. Add these. Alright. And then add the last one here, update the screen. It. Alright, so again from TouchGFX, when we had that keyboard selected bar, remember you couldn't touch it because it was in the GUI generated section, but when we do the update screen, then we can keyboard selected, we can then use that value, which was either 0 or 1. So here I'm going to take this keyboard selection variable that I created, and then I'm going to save this value to it. Oops. Value. And so again, so if it's SSID, it'll be 0. If it's password, it'll be 1. So, so we're in the keyboard view here. I know what keyboard was selected, and so when I save, I know which index I need to save it to. All right, let's see what else. Alright, so we need to update the screen. Let's save this. Alright, let me copy. So we're going to work off the index 0 here. So that'll be SSID. Alright, so So basically, this is index 0, so I know I'm working with the SSID. I'm just checking to see if there's any strings in it. If the first character is 0, then I know it's just, or null, I know there's nothing in it, so it's just blank. So I'm not going to do anything, but if there is, it's greater than 0, then this text area SSID buffer is the wildcard. So I'm clearing it, doing a memset and just making it all null for the whole array, which is 18, I believe. Yeah, it was 18, so that's 18. And then I'm taking the keyboard buffer, which is the SSID, and then I'm saving it into the SSID buffer, which is the wildcard. And then I'm making sure the wildcard last index is null. And then this text area SSID is that whole text, and doing an invalidate, and so they'll refresh that text area. So that's just for the SSID. Now this is going to be for the password. Kind of same thing, but this one we're going to mask the ID, or the password, I'm sorry. So I'm just creating a temporary array here, and then so this is the index 1, which is the password. I'm just checking to see what the length is, and remember this is this array here is a Unicode character, so we have to use TouchGFX Unicode string length. You can't just use the standard string length library. So make sure it's Unicode, and just finding out what size it is. Okay, and then I'm creating another Unicode character buffer here. Size 18. I'm just making sure it's all null, and then so this temp. Alright, so this temp array, I'm just adding this asterisk or a mask, depending on the size of the keyboard buffer. So if your password was 5 characters, so this will be 5, so 5 asterisks will be saved into temp. And then we need to again, being that this is just a regular character, it's not Unicode, we need to change from the UTF-8, which is this temp, and save it into this Unicode buffer, which is this. So this is TouchGFX function, so it'll do all that for you, and we're just doing the string length of the whatever size of the string is. And then from there, let's see, that's the Unicode buffer. So this is the wildcard, so I'm making sure that's all cleared out. And then now we're just copying this Unicode buffer into the sorry, I was looking at something, but oh, I see a mistake, but alright, so okay, just make sure that the last index is 0, and for some reason this is text area. so this, I'm missing this one line, so this is password. This not need invalidate. Alright. Yeah, we're supposed to invalidate the text area when we update it, but for some reason I was missing this code, but it seemed to be working. But okay, so I did have issues earlier, so I'm worrying because I didn't have that, or I may have copied this from a working one and then I missed this last line when I copied, so that could be what happened. But the current file I'm looking at doesn't have this line, so I'm like, that's weird. Alright, so I think that's it. So let's see. Let me build this real quick. Let's see what errors we get, if any.
The Brain Balance program can help. If you feel your child falling further and further behind in school, don't wait. Call your local center today and find out how Brain Balance
What we
can
got
be the
here?
strong foundation your child needs for a brighter future.
Brain Balance Center of Lake Forest. Tap or click the banner for more information.
Screen keyboard view. Did I forget the header or the prototype? Yeah, I forgot the prototype here. Alright, let's try it one more time. Alright, no errors. Let me set up my camera. Hopefully this works. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start to, what happened here? Close this, so maybe I just start from here. So debug as I'm not sure why it's not working from this item, menu item up here, icon item. I'll have to figure that out later. Alright, so as you can see, the LCD is blank, so I got program. Let me go ahead and run it. Alright, so we got our home screen, it was blank, but we have our settings button. Alright, see if that settings button goes to the settings screen. It does. Alright. Let me go ahead and open it up. Alright, so if we touch this text area here, we should go to our keyboard. Here's our keyboard. I'm going to type something. So my SSID, if I hit OK, hopefully it shows up. Oh, there it is. Somehow our wildcard characters didn't take, because that's why we had the question marks. I think so. Let me try the password. So 6 characters there. Okay. Alright, so I did get 6 question marks. So yeah, our wildcard character wasn't set up correctly. So let me go ahead. Let's close that. Go ahead and stop this. Open up TouchGFX. Oh, okay. This is what happened. So let's go to screen settings. Even though I had the keyboard set up for those characters, I actually didn't set up our text for the SSID. Let me start doing this up. Alright, so this is our SSID, and it's using the default 20, which is this, but I don't have any wildcard characters, so I need to copy this, paste it in there, and then our ranges, paste that in there, and our password here is using the same one. So now we have our wildcard characters and ranges set up. So let me go ahead and generate the code. Oh, it's done. Go ahead and close that. Alright, so let's try debugging again. Alright, run that. Oop, still working, and I try to run it, so I'm gonna get an error. That's okay. You can see it's on our screen, so let me open that up. Alright, so hit settings, SSID, go ahead and do again my SSID. Okay, oops. There it is, my SSID, and then the password. So what's that? 8 characters. So okay, so we should have 8. There it is, 8. And if I was to do a 2, should I show 2? Now, if we don't type anything in here and we hit OK, it's going to clear that out. Same for SSID. If we hit OK, nothing typed in, it's going to clear that out. Put this my SSID back. Nice, so it's there. We go back to keyboard, and if I hit cancel, it should it'll still be there because it's in the buffer. So 3 characters, so there's 3 asterisks. So that's how you use the keyboard and how to kind of make a edit text box. It's not a real edit text box, but it looks like it, and how to show text there. So the next video, when we hit this OK, send to the ESP through UART serial data, this SSID and the password, so it gets stored into this into the ESP memory. So whenever this powers up, it'll already have the credentials in it, and connect to the internet, and then connect to the MTP server to get the time, and then also connect to what I'm using is actually Openweather map.org. Give me a second here. I may have wrote that down somewhere. Might be on some other notes that I have, but yeah, I'll have on the next video I'll show you the website, the Openweather, and how to get the icons for the different day, or not, I wouldn't say days, but like if it's sunny or cloudy or rainy, and then how to display which icons for that particular weather type. So hopefully this tutorial helped you a lot about the keyboard and how to create an edit text box to input text, and then show it. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments, and please try to share this video. Thank you.